Hello everyone, welcome to the Rhapsody in Lingo channel, and my name is Israel. In this video we are going to talk about the Kurdois language, or
Pronouns,
as it's called in Kurdois. Before we begin, Kurdois is not the French name for Kurdish. Rather, it is the indigenous language of the remote country of Kuringrad, or as it is natively known. Trust me, Kurdois is unlike any contemporary language, so prepare to be dumbfounded. First of all, let's look at where the Kurdois language came from. The language is variously theorized to have either come from the region from the north, or developed along the Guangul River and migrated outwards. During their long-term isolation from the outside world, the Kurdois people did not develop a writing system until around 1500 years ago, when they started using primitive pictures to record meaning. In Kurdois mythology, the pictures are said to have been created by the demigod Sanjid. In this video, we'll use the more developed and understandable Roman alphabet for our examples. Standardization. Until around 200 years ago, there was great variation among the regional varieties of the language, both in the spoken language and the written script, especially along the boundaries of the many tribes. King Tayanx announced that to strengthen the nation, they must unify the language, especially the script, using the northern variety as the standard. Since then, his policies on publishing and academia helped spread the language, making it largely uniform across the country. Let's take a look at some of the features of Kurdois. Kurdois has a complex phonology with many consonant clusters. Plosives like p, t, k, k, and affricates like t have a three-way distinction between voiced, voiceless unaspirated, and voiceless aspirated. Aspirated means there is a puff of air following the consonant, like p, as opposed to b. For example, the language contrasts between b, p, p, between d, t, t, g, g, k, and g, g, k. Let's look at some example words. We have
kl,
meaning joy,
gl,
meaning to have, and
pakab,
meaning law. There are some sounds in Kurdois that you are likely unfamiliar with. There are many nasal consonants like m, n, ng, and ng, and there are liquid consonants like r and l. But in Kurdois, these consonants have voiceless equivalents, meaning they are said with no resonance in the vocal cords. How can you make a voiceless l or ng? You can get an idea by whispering a word with those sounds. For example, language. Saying a whole word like that is straightforward, but in Kurdois, the individual consonant can be unvoiced, even next to vowels. Here's an example of a voiceless nasal,
neg,
meaning to eat. Kurdois vowels are relatively straightforward. One sound you might not be familiar with is which is like in Korean or the Turkish dotless I. You see it in numerous words like
mud,
meaning object. Vowels are also distinguished by length, such as
mud,
meaning to sink. One interesting thing about the pronunciation of Kurdois is that many Kurdois words end in a glottostop. A glottostop is a break in the sound created by obstructing the airflow in the throat, such as in the word uh-oh, uh-oh. In Kurdois, this sound is important to the meaning. For example,
ma,
meaning there is no, versus
ma,
meaning military. Consonants can also be pre-glottalized. This phenomenon also occurs in British English, like the gap between the o and the t in what. But in Kurdois, it can occur at the beginning of a syllable, like
thags,
meaning to do. Now let's look at the vocabulary. As a result of the complex phonology, many words in Kurdois encompass their meanings in short syllables. Kurdois often derives new words through two main ways: consonant mutation and suffixes. Consonant mutation is when a consonant, often the initial consonant of a word, is changed to a related one, which gives you a different form of the word. For example, changing an initial voiceless stop, such as p, t, k, to a voice stop, such as b, d, g, can turn a transitive verb into an intransitive verb. For example,
gre,
meaning to loosen becomes
gre,
meaning to relax, or
gains,
meaning to see. It can also indicate a passive construction, which we'll discuss later, but here it becomes
gains,
which means to appear, and also
tongue,
meaning to stretch becomes
Dang.
meaning to belong. It's worth noting that verbs and adjectives are pretty interchangeable in Kurdois. Now for the second way, Kurdois uses various suffixes to change words. For example, earlier we've seen
Gu.
which means to have. If you add an S suffix, you could make it causative,
Gus.
which means to cause someone to have something. Alternatively, it can make it an adverb, which you could literally translate as like havingly. It means things like as well, even more, even though. And if you add a g suffix,
Gug.
it acquires a distributive meaning, so like putting into groups, hence someone, something, sometimes. It's a bit like saying, oh, there is someone here, there is someone there, there is someone everywhere. This distributive suffix can be applied to lots of words like pronouns. For example,
Dul.
means who. If you add the g, it becomes
Diug.
which means which one, or
Kla.
which means all can become
Klag.
which means each one. Also, if you remember,
Ma.
which means there is no, you can add the g suffix to make it
Mag.
which means no one, nobody. The causative suffix s is also very frequently used to derive verbs, like
Kul.
the noun meaning clothes can be changed to
Kus.
meaning to clothe, to dress someone, or
Krum.
meaning to drink can become
Krums.
meaning to cause to drink,
Mun.
meaning to hear becomes
Muns.
to cause someone to be heard, or simply to ask. This particular one is called an exoactive form, which means the action is directed towards someone else. Let's look at some example sentences.
Kre kul. Kulsngal. Tul lug. Lugsngal.
He undressed to clothe me and gave up his food to feed me. Word for word, it's undress, which contains
Kul.
an element that means clothes. Clothe me, reject, food, feed me. You can actually see that English has the very same derivation process, but using a change in the vowel from food to feed.
Sang krumsbra. Kogal. Nyiklul.
I will let the horse drink water at the river and return. Word for word, it's intend, make the horse drink water, which contains the verb
Krums.
locative prefix,
Ka.
which expresses location, river, and return. Now that we've seen some examples, let's delve deeper into how sentences are constructed. Kurdois generally uses an SVO structure, which means subject, verb, object, but often shifts pronouns and other elements around for emphasis. If you want to say A is B, the simplest way is just A, B. But you can add various optional particles for emphasis, such as the affirmative particle
Lal.
at the end. It's a bit like Japanese desu. Or you can add the topicalizing particle.
Tia.
It's like saying what A is B. There is also the copular verb to be,
Gui.
which is not always used. For example,
Lagui smelsde.
I am a young person. Word for word, it's I, be, small or young, person. Here
La.
is the first person singular pronoun in the nominative or accusative cases. We'll talk more about pronouns in a minute. If you want to make a passive sentence, which means something is done by someone, there are several ways to do it. One of the ways is to use the verb,
Gens.
which literally means to see, but is used here as a passive marker to receive an action. You can imagine seeing the action coming towards your eyes, perhaps. For example,
Gens goods kagwads gloon.
meaning to be loved by Gwads, which is a person's name. Word for word, it's passive marker or to see, love, locative prefix, so at, Gwads, the person's name, and a respectful title. Here you can see that if you want to optionally indicate the doer of the action, you can use the locative prefix
Ka.
that we saw earlier. It's a bit like the English done by someone. By originally refers to location, but here indicates the doer. Now let's look at a couple more sentences and break them down.
Ngazlong như sritia.
Which means I follow and learn from him. Word for word, it's I follow and imitate, learn from him.
Nga.
is another first-person singular pronoun, I, but only in the nominative case, whereas
La.
can be nominative or accusative. The pronoun,
Ngal.
on the other hand, can be the first-person singular accusative, the first-person singular in any case if it's emphatic. So like me, not anyone else, me. Or the first-person plural pronoun. Speaking of pronouns, Kurdois has a complex system of pronouns that change based on social status relative to the listener and based on case. For example, the second-person singular pronoun, you, singular, can be
Nya.
or,
Nyel.
but for people you respect very much, you would use.
Slu.
Incidentally, this pronoun, when capitalized, can also be used in the third-person singular to refer to a specific saint in the Kurdois folk religion. In general, Kurdois lacks third-person pronouns, but people are increasingly using demonstrative pronouns like this and that to function as he, she, it. Let's go back to the earlier example.
Du.
Is originally the accusative form of the demonstrative pronoun,
Die.
which means this or that. But here it is used to mean him. Let's look at another example.
Mulbanien Tirug. Begripse.
Without his power, I would not have reached this success. Word for word, it's not be, that person, possessive prefix, power, not, reach, demonstrative pronoun, this. In Kurdois, there are two main ways to form negatives. The first one is the use of particle.
Peu.
For example,
Nga le lal.
word for word, it's not, first person singular pronoun, I, no, affirmative particle. Note that the object pronoun I is moved before the verb for emphasis and
Lal.
is once again an optional affirmative particle to strengthen your tone. So put together it means,
You don't know me.
now here comes the fun part. If you combine
Peu.
with
Oui.
to be, you get
Peul.
to not be.
Be or not to be.
For example,
Pelnin lal.
word for word it's not be, person, affirmative particle. So put together it means that is not human. If you combine
Peu.
with the object pronoun,
Du.
which means it, you get
Peud.
which is used for verbs. It's like saying do not eat it. For example,
Qualpeud. Nunged.
word for word it's fire, not it, can, burn. So together it means fire cannot burn it. The second way of forming negatives is using
Ma.
there is no. Earlier, we saw how you can add the distributive suffix g to make it
Mag.
no one. You can also combine it with
Goods.
which means already to make
Moods.
which means not yet, or with
Oui.
which means to be, to get,
Mul.
which means without. Now let's look at some final sentences,
Nya. Grusklols. Hulding.
which means you are morally corrupt. Word for word, it's second person singular pronoun, you, bad, surpass, a person's name. Bad surpass is how you form a comparative adjective, hence it means worse than. Meanwhile,
Hulding.
is a legendary figure in Kurdois mythology who is famous for being morally corrupt. So literally, you are worse than.
Hulding.
And the final sentence,
Wonitzig. Gradsgraug.
word for word, it's foolish person, festival, happy.
Wonitzig.
Is an annual celebration of foolish people in Kurdois culture because in an increasingly complicated world, their gullibility reminds us how it's like to have a pure heart. So this translates to Happy April Fool's Day. So, Happy April Fools? I hope you had fun. It's just a thing about the name Kurdois, because it is not entirely made up. While it may look like, and I have been pronouncing it like a French name, it is in fact a real word written in Nganmuzi, which is a romanization system made up by my friends for Cantonese, inspired by Old Chinese. How the word is actually pronounced is Kurdois, which means ancient. And yes, you have been learning about Old Chinese from around 2,000 years ago. Obviously, I made up some stuff and simplified a lot of it, but most of what you just learned is true. So I hope this was interesting. As for question of the day, If you figured out it's an April Fool's joke, when did it click? When did you realize? But to avoid spoilers in the comments, tell me cryptically by saying what your favorite part was. As for the rest of you, what is your impression of Kurdois? And would you like to visit Kaliningrad someday? Thank you all for watching, and especially I'd like to thank Kamil for supporting the channel as a channel member. If you're interested in cultural differences and in my part of the world, check out my video on how Hong Kong English names work and why you might be wrong about them. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.